Previously on Dry Powder.
It's a real high-wire act to lead a tech company.
David Crawford, head of Bain's global technology practice, talked about the enterprise tech space. Today on the show, I'll ask David to develop an investment thesis that will keep your portfolio on the right side of creative destruction.
There's a real science that our clients in the private equity space and we apply together to those business models to make them really, really good investments.
I'm Hugh MacArthur, head of Bain's global private equity practice, and this is Dry Powder. So if the disruption's accelerating, David, what can we learn from the firms that actually keep adapting to these new platforms?
We've found there's two broad categories of persistent value creators within the tech sector. The first is ones you'd expect. It's the companies that have secured a platform and are extending and scaling it. In fact, 100% of the most valuable companies in the tech sector have some sort of platform, by which I mean a product upon which others build their product and create lock-in and network effects. So examples, Amazon building its book platform, then adding broader and broader items for retail sale, and then eventually extending that same formula into offering infrastructure as a service and platform as a service to their customers. And you can name others, Alibaba, Facebook, others that live in that category. Those are not surprising. They're very well publicized. There's a second broad category that we're also interested in, which are companies that have already reached maturity in their core franchise and nevertheless go through a transformation where they generate extraordinary equity returns. So these are companies like Adobe, Microsoft, NVIDIA, et cetera. Interestingly, they are often written up in the business press as having added a lot of new businesses, having built adjacencies and launched new ideas and built new franchises. In fact, what's actually happening there is they've repositioned their core business in a new competitive reality. So Microsoft, before the transition and after, Satya led the company from Windows to Azure, from Office to Office 365. Very similar business models, leveraging what the company was great at, but very skillfully and successfully transitioned that company to a new world, which was cloud-based. It's a massive transformation, a very big difference. But it wasn't a story of adding lots of businesses. And I don't think that's a new phenomenon, but I think that's one that many of our clients live in that category, and they get drawn into adding a lot of new businesses, the shiny new object and so forth. In many cases, in the tech sector, the more important priority is to make sure your core business is well positioned with the trends that will drive growth going forward.
So if I can kind of make a investment thesis cartoon out of what you just said, or at least my interpretation of it, I'd love to see if you agree with this, David. There are at least three different kinds of theses that one might apply as a private equity investor. One is clearly to ride a secular trend and extend it in some way. That may mean entering new adjacencies, accelerating through buying and integrating other things, but essentially having a stable core that you don't believe is going to be disrupted, and you can leverage that to be the disruptor while you have some secular tailwinds behind you. A second might be being the actual disruptor that blows something up in technology and being able to ride that wave and being able to understand that you are going to disrupt other business models with confidence, and you have the customer feedback, the data on cost, the data on speed, whatever the key KPIs happen to be, to believe that that's going to happen enough to underwrite it. And then the third might be taking what I'll call the traditional technological infrastructure that already exists and trying to defend that for as long as possible against disruptive change, and being able to manage that for cash flow and for value over a long period of time. If you can convince yourself that, yes, disruption is coming eventually, but it's not going to be coming anytime soon, and over a holding period, I might be successful in investing in things that are not going to be part of the exciting next 10 or 20 years in the cloud and tech, but might be part of the legacy technological infrastructure. Do those three things resonate at all? And is there something else you might add to that?
I like that a lot, Hugh. The first couple that you mentioned, the secular trend and the be the disruptor, I think correlate with one another. It's often the companies riding a secular trend who are most capable of being the disruptor. They are attracting the talent, they have the momentum, they have the economics to actually be able to say, I'm going to go off and actually disrupt a sector near me or extend my business model. There may be two theses there, but I think they're often closely correlated. The third one you mentioned, I like a lot. I might suggest there's two flavors of it. One is what you called and described defend. Is to defend that business model as long as possible, extend that cash flow as long as possible. I think that's very important. I think we have experienced over the years in our practice, particularly helping private equity owned tech companies, that there's almost a hysterical abandonment of a company that has a lot of longevity to it and a well constructed thesis of acquiring a tech franchise and extending its legs, optimizing its cash flow, keeping it healthy, often lasts a lot longer and has a lot more longevity than the market would expect. I actually think there's another version of it, I'll call it my fourth, which is reposition and get a second wave of growth. I think the example I gave you about Microsoft, a defend posture isn't exactly what Satya took. He took a posture of repositioning the company, and the growth has been extraordinary. And the value creation for those investors, is measured in hundreds of billions of dollars. Others have done that too. If you looked at, say, for example, NVIDIA is a company that was very invested in mobile when the mobility wave was driving the growth in the sector. And, that didn't really work, let's be honest. And it was in a pretty dark place in 2014. It repositioned itself onto the data center trend, and it really has experienced an extraordinary value creation to the point that it's actually one of the most valuable semiconductor companies in the world today.
There's kind of a new cliche. I'm used to old cliches, but there's a new cliche that's come along that every industry is now a tech industry. And when I think about how that applies to, non-traditional tech-based businesses like the pizza industry, where if you don't have a Papa John's or a Domino's app on your phone, you're actually not selling too much pizza compared to those guys, or the grocery business that we've all heard about so much about over the last 8 months. And if you don't have logistics software and dark stores and warehouse capabilities and lots of technology to deliver, you're going to lose share. Or things like telemedicine, where people now want to visit with their PCP first in their home, or even their physical therapist or their dermatologist or psychotherapist. Is your sense, is there some limit to this? Are all industries tech industries? Is that really true? Are there limits, and are there industries where you see, or sectors where you see tech actually accelerating its impact on a particular sector?
Yeah, I don't know that every business is becoming a tech business, but I do think technology has proven itself uniquely over the last 10, 15 years to be able to improve on many business models. So I think what we're probably experiencing is basically the innovation wrapped around a number of kind of infrastructure investments that have been made, including ubiquitous comms, ubiquitous and scalable computing, sensors, in particular computer vision and computer auditory interpretation. Those are big innovations that allow a lot of things. A lot of innovation in the algorithm space, whether it's routing, it's logistics handling, it could be analytics and sorting through what demand patterns look like and so forth. Global positioning services, being able to identify the location of objects, things like that. Test and learn methods are a big deal. So many business models have moved to a place where you don't have to predict the future as well as you used to. You can actually create hypotheses and rapidly make changes and learn from the response in small increments. And then mobile devices, things have just become radically more mobile. And so if you just take all those things individually, you'd say, well, lots of interesting innovation. But when you see companies aggregating them and combining them together, you can go to almost any industry and find a way to improve the business model at pretty low cost. The development models are much simpler. The cost of adding a new business. I had a chat with a woman just a couple of days ago who's setting up an online yoga service, and she's able to do this on a shoestring budget because everything is as a service. She's got a company that handles billing for her. She's got a company that handles video streaming for her. She's got a company that handles payments for her. And pretty quickly, she's got a company set up. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, she hasn't spent her life savings or risked her personal reputation going after the concept. So I just think we're feeling the innovation of that combination of factors.
Given my personal level of flexibility, the online yoga is probably a service I could subscribe to.
I'll hook you up.
But what I hear you saying is, if you're an investor, almost regardless of sector that you happen to be evaluating, if you're not taking this technological lens to it and trying to understand where are there upsides that I could take advantage of to create value, and where are there potential disruptions that could destroy value, you're not doing your job.
You're not doing your job, and you're putting yourself at risk. You're putting your shareholders at risk. Because someone will.
David, I can certainly understand with all of the dynamism that you've expressed today around the tech space, opportunities for players to ride secular waves, go on offense in multiple different strategies, also actually play defense and extend and defend that way, that there's so much going on. It's not surprising to me that this is the number one sector of interest for private equity investors, has been for the last 5 to 7 years, as I mentioned, and probably will be to the next 5 to 10 years, given the impact that tech is going to have, not only internally as an industry, but on many, many other industry sectors that we look at Bain.
Yeah, I agree. It's been a real privilege to have worked in the space and lived in the area for the period of our history when this has all been going on. And I agree, uncertainty creates beta, and beta creates investment opportunities, and then it creates room for intelligent people to make smart bets. And I think there are rules of the road that allow you to make very intelligent bets and manage those investments very well.
Well, we certainly appreciate you being able to see around corners that most of us can't. And I wanted to thank you again, David, for stopping by the show today. It's been terrific.
Happy to help you. Take care.
If you'd like to take a deeper dive into Bain's 2020 technology report, email us at drypowder@bain.com. I'm Hugh MacArthur. Thank you for listening.